Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective. I thought I would do a little video here just to highlight and bring up a comment that I saw this morning that someone made on my video on MacArthur's legal defense. And I thought this comment was just so interesting that it would be good to bring it up and hear what other people think about this. But this is what they said. The position taken by this church has nothing to do with the ultimate constitutional adjudication of the case, however. The Grace Community local church expression will meet regardless of the outcome of any court case for that matter. This church and its leadership have staked out an uncompromising position which they will stand by, come what may. I thought that comment was just so interesting because what it's basically saying is that it doesn't matter what happens in the court case with Grace Community Church versus the government of California, because the church is going to meet no matter what. And that does bring up a really interesting question. How will that church handle it if they don't win in the courts? I do think it's possible that what this person is saying is true. They have indicated, their church leadership has indicated that they are going to meet in spite of the government restrictions, and they believe that they need to obey God rather than Caesar. But it's interesting to think about this. If the California government wins the case, then it could really be hard for Grace Community Church to continue to meet indoors, because the government could say, well, we're going to shut down your power. And so even if the church meets, they don't have any power. And so what's that going to do? Then they'd have to meet outdoors, which gets back to the very thing that the government was saying. You can't meet indoors, but they are, as far as I know, allowing churches to meet outdoors. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this pans out. I do think it's possible that the church might decide, if they were to lose, they might decide on an alternative course of action so that there aren't extreme consequences to whatever it is they end up doing. So I do think that they're going to try to follow what God says and continue to meet as a church, but it will be interesting to see what that actually looks like. And so I do think that they'll try to stand their ground as much as possible. But again, I think the city could just do some things like continue to fine them and to shut off their utilities like their power, their electricity, their water, and just make it really difficult. And if the church meets, how are they going to film what they're doing, for example, if they don't have power? So all of that would be really, really interesting to see how Grace Community Church deals with that. I do want to say that I believe Grace Community Church is a church that tries to be respectful of the government and obey the government as much as possible. So I think that's going to be a factor at play, that if they were to lose in the courts, maybe they would say, well, okay, the government has spoken. We need to adjust what we're doing, but we're still going to try to obey God. I do think they're going to try to stand their ground as much as possible, but I could see them also making adjustments, and I don't know exactly what that would look like. Also, the situation might just kind of go on, because in the courts, it's possible that if there is a fight, that things could get stalled to the point where it wouldn't actually matter, because by the time the decision is really made, or the government feels they have the right to do something like shut off power, maybe we're past the point of needing the restrictions that are presently in place. So we'll see. I really don't know. I don't have a definite conclusion as to how Grace Community Church would respond. I think what this person's saying here is very interesting, but it would be really fascinating to see what does it look like to stand your ground in a situation like this. I'm not sure what will happen, but I'd like to hear what you think on this issue of what happens if John MacArthur and Grace Community Church do not win their legal defense against the California government. You can leave those comments. Just try to keep the conversation positive and edifying. And thank you so much for listening to what I have to say from A Frisch Perspective.